Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, people still underestimate you? You smile when you're supposed to, you agree when you're expected to, and you push yourself to keep up, but deep down you're exhausted. You wonder, when will I finally feel strong? When will people stop doubting me? The truth is, you don't need to pretend to be strong. You need to build a mind so unshakable that nothing and no one can break you. No criticism can throw you off. No failure can make you panic. No rejection can crush you. And when you reach that level, something strange happens. Your presence alone starts to terrify people. Not because you're cruel or loud, but because your calm becomes a mirror to their chaos. But here's the catch. Building that kind of mind is not easy. It's painful, it's lonely. You'll lose friends, face judgment, and question everything you thought you knew. And that's exactly why most people never even try. In today's video, I'll show you how to build a mind so strong it terrifies people. Not by overpowering them, but by mastering yourself. If you're tired of feeling small, if you're done shrinking to fit in, stay with me until the end. You're about to discover what real strength looks like. Lesson 1. Growth comes with loneliness. Let's be honest, we all want to become stronger, more confident, more resilient. But here's the part no one tells you. The moment you start truly growing, you will feel lonely. Not because you've done something wrong, but because for the first time you're doing something right, something that's right for you. Imagine this. You stop going to parties that drain you. You quit the habit of fake smiling at people you don't vibe with, and you pull away from shallow conversations that make you feel empty inside. Suddenly, you're no longer normal to the people around you. You're no longer the person who laughs at every joke or agrees just to keep the peace. And when that happens, people notice, and not always in a good way. Let me give you a real example. Sarah, a client I once coached, used to be a hardcore people pleaser. She was always the first to volunteer, the last to leave, always saying yes, even when she wanted to scream no. One day she hit her breaking point. She stopped answering texts right away. She turned down weekend plans to focus on herself. She even started therapy. What happened next? Her friends got uncomfortable. They called her distant. They joked, "What, are you too good for us now?" But here's the truth. Sarah wasn't rejecting them. She was finally showing up for herself. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "To live a good life, we have the potential for it, if we can learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference." A good life isn't measured by how many people surround you. It's measured by how free you are from things that don't matter. And when you stop chasing meaningless noise, people around you start to feel the weight of their own distractions. Have you ever tried quitting a bad habit like smoking, gossiping, or complaining, only to have people around you act offended, even though you never criticized them? That's because your growth shines a light on what they're avoiding. But here's where it gets tough. To build a mind that terrifies people, a mind they respect but can't control, you have to master one of the hardest skills of all, walking alone without losing your way. There's no manual for this. No school teaches you how to sit in a room by yourself with no phone, no noise, no validation, and just be. So here's a challenge for you. Tonight, turn everything off. Sit in silence. Write down 3 questions. 1. What am I avoiding? 2. What am I afraid to admit to myself? 3. Why do I need so many people to feel like I matter? It's not easy. You might feel restless, you might want to check your phone or distract yourself. But if you can sit in that discomfort, something incredible happens. You start to hear your own voice again. Think of Emily Dickinson. She lived in near total isolation, yet her words have echoed through centuries. Or Nikola Tesla, who spent most of his life alone, working in silence, and reshaped the modern world. They didn't blend in, they didn't need a crowd. And in that solitude, they found razor-sharp clarity. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a hermit or cut everyone off, but I am saying this. If you can't sit alone with yourself, you'll always be a hostage to the crowd. Because here's the secret. Loneliness isn't punishment. It's where reconstruction begins. It's where your mind learns not to break. Once you can stand in silence and not wither, everything else, judgment, rejection, failure, becomes just background noise. And when you rise from that silence with a mind that can't be shaken, the world will look at you differently. Not with admiration, not with applause, but with caution. Because they'll know you're no longer dependent. You're no longer easy to manipulate. And that kind of quiet strength, it unsettles people more than any loud display of power ever could. So, as we move into the next lesson, ask yourself, am I willing to face the loneliness that comes with growth? Because if you are, you've already taken the first step toward building a mind so strong it terrifies people. Lesson 2, your change will threaten others. So, you've started changing. You're setting boundaries, thinking deeper, maybe even cutting out the things that drain your energy. You'd expect people to support you, right? To cheer you on? But here's the harsh truth. Your change will threaten others. Why? Because when you grow, even in small ways, it holds up a mirror to the people around you, and not everyone is ready to look in that mirror. Let's say you just stop going to meaningless parties every weekend. You tell your friends, hey, I'm focusing on my goals right now. What do you get in return? Oh, you're no fun anymore. Since when did you become so serious? Or worse, silence. That cold distance when you try to share something meaningful and they just don't care. This isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're making them confront what they're avoiding. I worked with a guy named Alex who went through this exact experience. For years, he was the life of the party, drinking, joking, always available. But one day, he decided to quit drinking, hit the gym, and read more. He thought his friends would be proud. Instead, they called him boring, said he was getting too deep, and some even stopped inviting him out. Alex was crushed at first, but then he realized their discomfort wasn't about him. It was about them, about the fact that his growth highlighted their own stagnation. Here's the thing, mental growth is like turning on a light in a dark room. The light doesn't say anything. It just exists. But if someone has gotten comfortable living in the dark, that light can feel blinding. This is where something called groupthink comes into play. It's a psychological phenomenon where everyone in a group unconsciously agrees on the same behaviors, beliefs, and habits, just to feel safe. So when you're the first one to break the pattern, to stop complaining and start solving, to stop gossiping and start reflecting, people won't always cheer you on. Sometimes they'll push back, not because they hate you, but because you challenge the comfort zone they've been living in. Look back in history. Why was Socrates sentenced to death? Not because he committed a crime, but because he asked dangerous questions. Questions that forced his society to confront its own blind spots. Or take Malcolm X. When he shifted from black nationalism to a broader message of human rights, it wasn't just the system that rejected him. Even his own allies turned against him. Here's the real question you need to ask yourself today. How many times have you held yourself back just to keep other people comfortable? How many times have you shrunk your dreams, your ideas, your opinions, just to fit in? The truth is, the people you try to please today might be the first to walk away when you no longer serve their expectations. And that's okay, because the inner strength you're building, even if it feels lonely, is what will carry you through when the applause stops. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. So, what should you do when your growth makes people uncomfortable? Don't over-explain. Don't beg for understanding. Stay quiet and keep going. Real change doesn't need validation. It speaks through results. It speaks through peace of mind. Here's a little exercise I want you to try today. 1. Write down 3 things you're currently changing in your life. 2. Write down 3 negative reactions you've received from people around you. 3. Ask yourself, if I went back to who I was, would I respect myself more? I'll tell you right now, the answer is almost always no. Because here's the thing, a strong mind doesn't avoid resistance, it moves through it. Not everyone is ready to evolve. But if you are, stop asking for permission. Just move. And remember this, sometimes all it takes is one person speaking up, one person living authentically, for others to find the courage to do the same. Nietzsche called this kind of person the Übermensch, the one who rises above herd morality and lives by a value system of their own making. They don't ask, am I allowed to do this? They ask, is this worthy of me? So as we head into the next lesson, ask yourself, are you ready to keep moving forward even when the people around you push back? Because if you are, you're already ahead of the majority. Lesson 3. Own your life completely. All right, you've started walking your own path, you've felt the loneliness, and you've handled the pushback from people around you. Now comes the next challenge, and it's a big one. You need to own your life completely. Sounds simple, right? But let me ask you, how many times a day do you blame something or someone else for how you feel? We say things like, I'm stressed because of my job. I'm unhappy because of my partner. I can't focus because people keep distracting me. Here's the truth. Life will always throw chaos your way. You can't control that. What you can control, and what builds a truly powerful mind, is how you respond to it. Think about it this way. In a world where everyone is reacting on autopilot, the person who can pause, breathe, and respond intentionally, that person stands out. That's the person people can't shake. I had a client named Marco who worked in a high-pressure sales job. Every day, his boss would yell, coworkers would panic, and clients would make impossible demands. Marco used to come home completely drained, snapping at his wife, skipping the gym, and numbing himself with Netflix. One day, he hit a breaking point. Instead of blaming everything around him, he sat down and asked himself, if no one helps me, how far can I help myself? That one question changed everything. He started waking up earlier to work out before the chaos hit. He meditated in the car before walking into the office. And when his boss yelled, he didn't match that energy. He stayed calm. The result? His performance went up, his stress went down, his wife noticed, his co-workers noticed, and most importantly, Marco noticed. This is where maturity begins. When you stop waiting for life to be easy, and you start taking ownership of what's inside your control. There's a powerful line from Friedrich Nietzsche that I love. Freedom is the will to be responsible for ourselves. But here's the twist. With freedom comes burden. You gain the right to rewrite your story, but you also lose the right to complain if the ending sucks. And yeah, that feels heavy, but that's the price of real freedom. So here's a practical exercise for you. Before you go to bed tonight, don't ask, who drained me today? Instead, ask, what responsibility did I avoid today? Write it down. Not to beat yourself up, but to set yourself up for tomorrow. Small, consistent choices can change the entire direction of your life. A strong mind isn't one that knows everything. It's one that's willing to take responsibility even when the outcome is uncertain. Let me give you another example. There's a man named James, a brilliant engineer, husband, father. One day, tragedy struck. His 6-year-old son died in a freak accident. For months, James shut down emotionally. He buried himself in work. He avoided grief like it was poison. But the more he ran, the emptier he felt. Finally, one night, James sat alone in his son's empty room and let himself break. He cried, he grieved, he faced the pain he'd been running from. And in that moment, something shifted. James realized pain doesn't destroy you. Avoiding it does. When you dare to confront what hurts, it loses its power over you. It becomes fuel. Just like coal under pressure turns into diamond, your mind sharpens under pressure too. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." So I want you to sit with this question today. What pain am I trying to avoid? Write it down. Not to dwell, not to complain, but to understand. Then ask, what can this teach me? Because when you face your pain head on, you become someone people can't manipulate, can't push around, can't break. And that, my friend, is what terrifies people the most. So as we get ready for the next lesson, remember this. Real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. Are you ready to take full ownership of your life? If you are, you're already miles ahead of the average person. And you're just getting started. Lesson 4. Face pain instead of running from it. By now, you've probably noticed something. Every step toward a stronger mind involves discomfort. And today, we hit the most uncomfortable lesson of all. Pain. Most people will do anything to avoid pain. They'll distract themselves with work, binge watch shows, scroll endlessly on social media, or jump from one relationship to another, all to avoid sitting with what hurts. But here's the truth. Pain doesn't destroy you. Avoiding it does. Let me tell you a story. James was a brilliant engineer. On the surface, his life looked perfect. A successful career, a loving family, 2 kids. But when his 6-year-old son died in a tragic accident, James's world shattered. For months, he buried himself in work, avoided conversations about his son, and pretended he was fine. To everyone else, he looked like the strong one, composed, reliable, moving forward. But inside, James was falling apart. One night, after months of running from his grief, James walked into his son's empty room. Something inside him cracked. He sat on the floor, cried for the first time in months, and let himself feel everything he'd been avoiding. And you know what happened? The next morning, James woke up and felt something he hadn't in a long time. Clarity. Because here's the truth most people miss. When you face your pain, it loses its power over you. Think about your own life. Maybe you're avoiding the pain of a breakup. Maybe you're avoiding the regret of not chasing a dream. Maybe you're avoiding the shame of a mistake you made. We tell ourselves, if I just stay busy, it'll go away. But it doesn't. It just waits, and it drains you from the inside. Here's what the Stoics knew. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the teacher. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." In other words, hardship sharpens you, resistance strengthens you, and trying to live a life without challenge only weakens your character. So here's your challenge for today. Sit down, grab a notebook, and ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What pain am I trying to ignore? Be honest. Is it a conversation you're avoiding? A decision you're afraid to make? A truth you don't want to face? 2. What has this pain been trying to teach me? Is it telling you to set better boundaries, to let go of something that no longer serves you, to finally stand up for yourself? 3. What's one small step I can take to face it today? Maybe it's journaling for 10 minutes. Maybe it's having a hard conversation. Maybe it's simply admitting the truth to yourself. You don't have to fix everything today. You just have to stop running. Let me give you a simple, everyday example. A friend of mine, Claire, avoided looking at her finances for years. She was terrified of facing the debt she'd built up. Every month, she'd make minimum payments, avoid checking her balances, and tell herself, "I'll figure it out later." One day, she sat down, opened every account, wrote down every debt, and faced the number she'd been avoiding. Guess what happened? The debt didn't magically disappear, but the fear shrank. She made a plan, she asked for help, and most importantly, she stopped wasting energy pretending everything was fine. That's what I want for you, because here's the secret no one tells you. A mind that can face pain is a mind no one can control. When you're no longer afraid of discomfort, people can't manipulate you. When you're no longer running from yourself, failure and rejection become just part of the process, not something that defines you. And that kind of strength, it terrifies people. Not because you're cold or heartless, but because you're free. So as we move into the next lesson, I want you to sit with this. The cracks in your life, the places you hurt, are where the light gets in. That's where transformation begins, not in perfection, not in pretending, but in facing what's real. You don't need to run anymore. You're stronger than you think. By now you've learned to face loneliness, handle pushback, take ownership, and confront pain. But here's where things really get powerful. Lesson 5. Stay calm in chaos. Let me ask you, how do you usually react when life goes sideways? Maybe you panic when work gets overwhelming. Maybe you lash out when someone disrespects you. Maybe you freeze when things feel uncertain. You're not alone. Most people live in constant reaction mode. They're like leaves blowing in the wind. Every little storm sends them spinning. But here's the truth. The strongest people are the ones who stay calm in the storm. Think about it. When the room fills with tension, who stands out? Not the person yelling, not the person panicking. It's the one who stays grounded, the one whose presence calms everyone else. Let me give you an example. There's a teacher I know, Andrew. One day, a furious parent stormed into his classroom yelling about a grade. The other teachers scattered. The principal panicked, and everyone expected Andrew to either argue or crumble. But Andrew didn't do either. He stood calmly, listened, and when the parent finally paused, he simply said, "I understand you're upset. I'll file a report with the principal." That was it. No defense, no panic, no drama. The result? The parent's anger fizzled out. The school staff rallied behind Andrew, and the next day that same parent came back to apologize. Here's the point. Non-reaction is one of the most powerful responses you can have. Because when you don't react, you refuse to let others control your emotions. You stop playing by their script. Now, this doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you choose when and how to respond, instead of letting fear, anger, or insecurity take the wheel. So how do you practice this? Here's a simple but powerful exercise. At the end of each week, pick one area of your life, maybe your job, your relationships, your health, or your finances, and write down the worst realistic scenario you can imagine. What if you lost your job? What if that relationship ended? What if you faced a major setback? Write it out in detail. Why? Because when you imagine the worst ahead of time, you rob it of its power to surprise you. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's not about being negative. It's about building a mind that's ready, not rattled. Here's a modern example. Mike Tyson, one of the most feared boxers in history, was known for his almost expressionless face before a fight. No trash talk, no theatrics, just calm focus. Why? Because in his mind, he had already fought that match 100 times. He had faced every possible outcome, including losing, and had prepared himself for it. His stillness wasn't weakness, it was power. You can apply the same mindset in your own life. Got a big presentation? Visualize it failing, and plan how you'll recover. Going through a tough breakup? Picture the hardest moments, and remind yourself you can survive them. Facing a financial setback? Picture the adjustments you'll make, and realize it's not the end of you. Because here's the truth, it's not failure that breaks most people, it's surprise. When you become the kind of person who expects challenges, you become unshakable. People won't understand it, they'll call you cold. They'll wonder why you're so calm when everyone else is losing their mind. But that's when you know you've tapped into a deeper level of strength. So here's your takeaway for today. Practice imagining the worst, not to scare yourself, but to prepare yourself. Practice non-reaction, not to avoid conflict, but to master yourself. And remember, as the Stoic Marcus Aurelius said, the wise man sees in the misfortune of others what he should avoid. You don't need to wait for disaster to toughen up. You can start now, by building a mind that stays calm in chaos. As we move into the next lesson, ask yourself, am I ready to stop reacting to life and start mastering it? Because once you do, you'll realize something powerful. True strength isn't about what happens to you, it's about how you respond. By now, We've covered some big topics: loneliness, pushback, ownership, pain, and staying calm in chaos. But there's another lesson that takes your mental strength to a whole new level. Lesson 6. Prepare for the worst to build unshakable confidence. Let's face it, most people avoid thinking about the worst-case scenario. Why? Because it's scary. They tell themselves, if I don't think about it, maybe it won't happen. But that's not how life works. In reality, avoiding hard thoughts makes you fragile. Facing them makes you fierce. Let me tell you a story. Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers of all time, had a reputation for being terrifying in the ring. Not just because of his strength, but because of his mindset. Before every fight, Tyson would visualize every possible outcome, including losing. He played the match over and over in his head. He rehearsed his fear, his failure, his opponent's punches. So when he stepped into the ring, his face was blank, calm, almost cold. Why? Because in his mind, the fight had already happened 100 times. Nothing could surprise him. That's the level of mental preparation I want you to aim for. Here's why this matters. The reason most people collapse under pressure isn't because they're weak. It's because they're shocked. They lose a job and think, I never saw this coming. Their relationship ends and they say, I thought we were fine. They face a health scare and they're paralyzed by fear. But when you take time to prepare your mind for life's punches, you become resilient. This isn't about being negative or paranoid. It's about being ready. So, here's a practical exercise for you, and I highly recommend doing this at least once a week. Choose one area of your life, work, relationships, finances, health, and ask yourself, what's the worst realistic thing that could happen here? Write it out in detail. Then ask, if this happened, what would I do? What's my next step? For example, if you lost your job, do you have a backup plan? If your partner left, how would you care for yourself emotionally? If your savings dropped, what expenses could you cut? When you walk yourself through the storm before it arrives, you remove the element of surprise. And without surprise, fear loses its grip. I had a friend named Elena who used this exact practice. Elena ran a small business. She loved her work, but every time the economy dipped, she'd spiral into anxiety, imagining her company going under. One day, I asked her, have you ever written out your worst-case scenario? She hadn't. So she sat down and mapped it out. What if sales dropped by 50%? What if she had to lay off her team? What if she had to shut down? Then she wrote out her backup plans, cutting costs, pivoting services, even finding a part-time job if needed. And you know what? Her anxiety dropped by half, without changing anything in her business. Why? Because she proved to herself that even if the worst happened, she could handle it. That's the kind of strength that terrifies people, the kind they can't figure out. When they throw chaos at you and you stay steady, they start to wonder, what's holding this person together? And the answer is, you are. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, the wise man sees in the misfortunes of others what he should avoid. Don't wait for disaster to toughen up. Build your resilience now. So here's your challenge today. 1. Choose one area of your life. 2. Write out the worst realistic outcome. 3. Write your next 3 steps if it happens. And then, breathe. You're stronger than you think. And the more you practice facing discomfort in your mind, the less power it has over you in real life. As we move into the next lesson, remember this: true confidence doesn't come from avoiding fear. It comes from walking into it prepared. Ask yourself today, am I building a life that can handle storms, or am I hoping they never come? If you're ready to prepare, you're already on your way to building a mind so strong it terrifies people. We're almost at the finish line, and you've already covered some massive ground, from embracing loneliness to facing pain and preparing for the worst. But now we get to a lesson that's often overlooked and incredibly powerful. Lesson 7. Master the art of non-reaction. Let's be honest, we live in a world addicted to overreacting. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you instantly curse. Someone criticizes your work and you snap back defensively. A stranger posts a rude comment online and you feel compelled to respond. Sound familiar? But here's the truth. The person who can stay calm and choose when or whether to react is the most powerful person in the room. Non-reaction is not weakness. It's power under control. Let me tell you a quick story. A few months ago, a friend of mine, Daniel, was managing a team at work. One day, a client stormed into a meeting, shouting, accusing Daniel's team of a huge mistake. Everyone panicked, except Daniel. He sat still. He let the client vent, and when the client paused, Daniel calmly said, "Thank you for sharing, Matt. Here's what we can do next." No raised voice, no blaming, no panic. Guess what happened? The client calmed down, the team felt safe, and Daniel's boss was blown away. That's the magic of non-reaction. When you refuse to let others pull you into their storm, you force them to face their own reflection. Here's what most people get wrong. They think reacting fast shows strength. In reality, reacting less shows mastery. When you can stay centered, when you can pause, breathe, and respond instead of react, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people terrify those who rely on control. So, how can you practice this in daily life? Here's a simple exercise. For one full day, pay attention to your triggers. What makes you snap? Who gets under your skin? When do you feel the urge to jump into an argument or prove a point? Instead of reacting automatically, do 3 things. 1. Pause. 2. Breathe. 3. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. Here's a real-life example. Have you ever seen someone on social media post something that just begs for a reaction? Maybe it's political, maybe it's personal, maybe it's just plain ignorant. Your fingers itch to type a reply. But here's the challenge. Don't. Why? Because every time you take the bait, you hand over your power. You let someone else decide how you feel, how you act, and where you focus your energy. There's a powerful quote by Friedrich Nietzsche that I love. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. Translation: the more you get pulled into other people's battles, the more you lose sight of yourself. So what's the bigger picture here? Non-reaction is about mastering your inner world. It's about realizing that not every comment deserves a reply. Not every insult requires a defense. Not every problem is yours to fix. When you live this way, you unsettle people because they can't control you. And that's the kind of quiet strength that terrifies. I want you to try this for the next week. When someone annoys you, pause. When you feel the urge to defend yourself, breathe. When you get dragged into drama, step back. Watch what happens. You'll start to see how much energy you were wasting on things that never mattered. You'll feel calmer, clearer, stronger. And here's the beautiful part. The people around you will notice. They may not say it out loud, but they'll feel it. Your stillness will reflect their chaos back to them. Your calm will become a mirror they can't escape. So as we prepare for the next and final lesson, remember this. You don't have to control everything around you. You just have to control yourself. Because when you master non-reaction, you stop being a puppet on other people's strings, and you start living as the master of your own mind. Are you ready? Because in the final lesson, we'll cover the sharpest weapon of all. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. We've come a long way in this series, and now we've arrived at the final, most powerful lesson. Lesson 8. Sharpen your mind with critical thinking. Let's be real. Let's be real. In today's world, we are drowning in noise. Endless news headlines, social media opinions, viral outrage, hot takes everywhere. And here's the danger. If you don't train your mind to think for itself, someone else will think for you. That's why critical thinking is the sharpest weapon you can carry. It's what separates the people who are easily swayed from those who quietly shape their own lives. Let me tell you a story. A while back, I met a guy named Eric. On the surface, Eric seemed like a pretty average guy, friendly, hardworking, polite. But the more I talked to him, the more I realized Eric was different. Whenever we discuss politics, money, relationships, or health, Eric didn't just repeat headlines or trends. He asked questions. Who's benefiting from this narrative? What's the evidence behind this claim? Why do I believe what I believe? He wasn't cynical. He wasn't negative. He was thoughtful. And because of that, Eric was rock solid. While other people got swept up in panic, hype, or groupthink, Eric stayed calm. He had trained his mind to pause, analyze, and choose. That's the power of critical thinking. So how can you build it? Here's a simple practice. Every day, challenge one belief you hold. It could be about yourself. I'm just not good at public speaking. Ask, is that really true? Or have I just been telling myself that without practicing? It could be about the world. Everyone's out for themselves. Ask, is that true, or am I ignoring the kindness I see every day? It could be about others. My boss hates me. Ask, do I have actual evidence of that, or am I projecting my own insecurity? The point isn't to destroy your beliefs, it's to test them, because untested beliefs become chains. Tested beliefs become tools. Here's another real-life example. I had a friend, Maya, who used to panic every time her company went through changes. New manager, she feared being fired. New policy, she assumed disaster. One day I asked her, what's the actual track record here? How often have you lost jobs during changes? Turns out, never. But her mind was stuck in an old script. So we worked on this together. Every time change came, Maya would pause and ask, what's the evidence? What's the likelihood? What are my real options? Slowly, the panic faded. And in its place came clarity. That's the gift of critical thinking. It breaks you out of automatic fear and puts you back in charge. Here's another simple habit. When you hear a claim, pause and ask, who benefits if I believe this? For example, a company tells you their product will change your life. Who benefits? A political figure says only they can save the country. Who benefits? A friend says you'll never succeed if you go your own way. Who benefits? This doesn't mean you become a skeptic or a pessimist. It means you develop a radar for manipulation. And here's the wild part. When you become someone who can't be easily manipulated, people don't know what to do with you. You're not easily convinced, you're not easily offended, you're not easily led. And that, my friend, makes you powerful. As the Stoic philosophers understood, the mind is your ultimate fortress. You can lose your money, you can lose relationships, you can even lose health. But if your mind is sharp, independent, and resilient, you can navigate anything. So here's your challenge today. 1. Pick one belief you've been carrying without question. 2. Ask yourself, where did I get this from? Do I still agree with it? What's the evidence for or against it? 3. Be open to adjusting, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to evolve. As we wrap up this series, let me leave you with this. A formidable mind isn't loud. It's quiet. It doesn't dominate others. It masters itself. It doesn't cling to approval. It stands in truth. In a world that rewards easy outrage, shallow opinions, and blind loyalty, be the person who pauses, reflects, and thinks deeply. Because that kind of mind, it doesn't just survive the chaos. It reshapes it. You are capable of building a mind so strong, so clear, so resilient, it terrifies people, not because you harm them, but because you show them what they're avoiding in themselves. And that, my friend, is the greatest power of all. And there you have it. 8 powerful lessons on how to build a mind so strong it terrifies people. We talked about loneliness, handling pushback, taking ownership, facing pain, staying calm in chaos, preparing for the worst, mastering non-reaction, and sharpening your critical thinking. But here's the most important thing I want you to remember. This journey isn't about becoming invincible. It's about becoming unshakable. You're still human. You'll still feel pain, doubt, and fear. But with a trained mind, you'll learn to carry those things without letting them control you. And that's where true strength lives, not in perfection, but in resilience. If you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up for yourself, Thank you for investing this time into your growth. And thank you for being part of a rare group of people who are willing to do the deep, often uncomfortable work of becoming stronger from the inside out. I'd love to hear from you. Which of the 8 lessons hit you the hardest? Was it learning to face loneliness? Was it staying calm under pressure? Or was it the challenge of sharpening your critical thinking? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. I read every single one, and I'd love to know what resonated with you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Most importantly, remember this: you don't have to wait for the world to approve of you before you start living as your strongest self. You're allowed to start right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.